Well, let's talk about chemical equations. Chemical equations are the symbolic representation of chemical elements reacting to form a product. Since this is the symbolic representation of chemical elements, it means that that element has their full name or full meaning. Now, they react to form a product. That was just the introduction of chemical equation. In this video, we're gonna learn how chemical elements are formed or the way they react and the way they produce products. The reactants may be two or more chemical elements and an additional sign is in between them to show that they undergo reaction. Now, the elements which undergo reaction are called reactants. The reaction occurs on the left part on the sheet or book which you are reading or writing inside. It is in symbolic form. Example, calcium is calcium ion and sodium is sodium ion, Na+, and oxygen is oxygen ion, O2-. Now, these are the symbolic form of their respective ions. Now, sometimes we just ignore the ions and we just write the valency. We have the natural state of these elements like sodium. Sodium is in solid form, so it is NaS. Calcium is also solid, so it is CaS. And oxygen is a gas, so it is OG. How do they react? Let's put sodium ion and chlorine ion together. Now, we know how they react, the reaction. So the sodium and the chlorine are the reactants. Let's use their charges to determine their valency. We can do that by ignoring, rejecting, or avoiding the charges of both reacting elements. The reacting elements are sodium and chlorine, and their charges are the positive and the negative that they carry. Now, the positive ion, I've encircled it, and the negative ion, I've also encircled that. They are 1+ and 1-, but sometimes we don't write the 1, we just write the plus or the minus. The valency of sodium is 1, the valency of chlorine is also 1. Now, valency is the combining power of elements. So, let's clean it and let's continue to do our reaction. We have sodium and we have chlorine. Now, sodium is in solid form, that is the natural state of sodium, and chlorine is also in gaseous form, and that is the natural state of chlorine. This addition sign means that they undergo reaction, the reaction between sodium solid and chlorine. So this sodium and this chlorine are known as reactants. Now, let's move on to the product. Let's study how they form products. This reaction by the reactants combine by representing it with addition sign, which is the plus, to form or produce a chemical compound known as products. Now, the products are formed on the right side on the sheet or book in front of you. Therefore, there must be reaction for the formation of a product, and the reactions are formed by the reactants. The product produced must be the same as the reaction. Everyone will ask, what do you mean? Let's represent it with 3 chemical substances for us to understand it better. So this is 3 chemical substances. One has 3 moles and it reacts with another 3 moles to produce 6 moles. Now, chemical red has 3 moles and chemical yellow also has 3 moles. So they react. So the chemical red and yellow are the reactants and the blue is the product. So they produce 6 moles. So the amount of substance are the same. Amount of substance is measured in moles. The amount of substance is measured in moles. The amount of substance is the measure of quantity of atoms or molecules in the containers. That's the amount of substance. So the combining or the combination, let's say the summation of the reactions must be equal to their products. So the summation of the reaction, sodium solid plus chlorine solid, must equal to or must be equated to their products. And they form or they react together to form sodium chloride solid. This is cheaper, right? And everyone knows it. This is very, very cheap. Sodium chloride. Okay, let's move on. Let's try other examples to get an understanding. This is 2 atoms of hydrogen and it's a hydrogen gas reacting with chlorine gas. Now, they are the reactants and they react to produce hydrochloric gas. So let's balance it. We have balanced it. So the H is now 2 and the chlorine is also 2. You have sodium gas reacting with chlorine gas, and the chlorine has 2 atoms. So they react to produce what? Sodium chloride. And this sodium chloride is solid. Now we have balanced the sodium, so the sodium is 2 at the back here. These two affect both the sodium and the chlorine. So let's balance this sodium by adding 2 at the back too. So the sodium is balanced, this sodium is also balanced. We have underlined it with red line or red color. Now what about the chlorine? These two affect this chlorine, so the chlorine is Cl2 gas. The chlorine is also balanced. Here the H is 2, so H is balanced, and the chlorine is also 2, so the chlorine is balanced. Now these two affect both the HCl, so the Cl is also 2, therefore it is also balanced. Both of these equations are balanced. You can check it out. Let's move on and try more examples on it so that you'll be familiar with it. Now we have CO2 aqueous solution, which will react with sodium hydroxide equation or NaOH equation, hydroxide, and they produces sodium carbonate because Na reacts with the carbon dioxide to produce sodium carbonate and water. Now let's balance it. From this equation, we can see that the product sodium has 2 atoms, and this one, the reactant, has only 1. So we balance it by adding 2 to the NaOH, and this NaOH also produces the sodium carbonate equation or aqueous solution, sodium carbonate aqueous solution and water, H2O liquid. Now we can say that these two affect the whole NaOH. N is 2, so the Na is balanced, the sodium is balanced. Now it is affecting the whole equation. So O will be 2, O is 2, the H is also 2. So H is balanced, but the O is 3 at the product side, and we have another one O. So the O or the oxygen is 4. Now here the oxygen is 2, only 2. The 2 affect the sodium hydroxide, so the oxygen is 2. But we have carbon dioxide there, which is CO2 aqueous solution. So the O2 there, we add it to the O2 of the sodium hydroxide. So O is 2 plus O is 2, which is equal to O is 4. So oxygen is 4. Oxygen is balanced, right? Yeah, let's clean it. Oxygen is balanced. The next thing to check is carbon. Carbon is also balanced. Carbon is 1, 1. So carbon is what? Carbon is balanced. Carbon is 1 here and 1 there. So carbon is balanced. Now, let's check another thing. The hydrogen is 2. And here too, the hydrogen is 2. H is 2 at the reactant side. H is 2 at the product side. So H is 2. So hydrogen is also what? Balanced. Now, it is left with only sodium, right? Sodium is 2 here, sodium is 2 there, so sodium is also balanced. Na is balanced, sorry, not N, it's Na. Watch out for the next part. I'll do some video about rusting and the equation.